Hello and welcome to the Ao Kuang guide. This guide will be split into 3 sections. The first section will be on building. The second section will be on Ao Kuang's passive abilities, including his ability upgrade order and basic attack chain. And the third section will be on fighting, combat, and general high-level mechanical tips and tricks with Ao Kuang. So, straight away with the first section, building. For starting, you'll want Assassin's Blessing. In other game modes, you can swap this for Attacker's Blessing. Then, I generally like to start Tiny Trinket. You can also start Emerald Ring if you want. Then next, you get into Shoes of the Magi. Then you finish off whichever starting item you got. If you got Tiny Trinket, you build into Bancroft's Talon. If you got Emerald Ring, you build into Demonic Grip. Also at the start, 2 healing potions, 3 mana potions with Tiny Trinket. If you get Emerald Ring, you can only get 2 mana potions and 2 healing potions. So, get Bancroft's Talon there, then we get Demonic Grip. If you got Demonic Grip first, you then build in to Bancroft's Talon. So let's just go with some sort of standard start, Bancroft's Talon, Demonic Grip. Then, after Demonic Grip, I like to go into Tel'Kyn's Ring. Ao Kuang, you build sort of as an attack speed based magical god. Then, after that, I like to go into Typhon's Fang. Then you start to get into situational items. You'll then sell Assassin's Blessing, and after you get an item here, you'll also eventually sell boots for one of these items. You can either get Hastened Ring. This is very good for sticking to enemy gods and increasing your attack speed even more. If you're having a lot of trouble with CC, or you think you're getting bursted a bit too much, Magi's Cloak is good here as well. If you want to be killing tanks even more effectively, Obsidian Shard is also good. If you need some anti-healing, you have 2 options here. You either have Toxic Blade, this is in attack speed based option. You probably wouldn't want to build Toxic Blade with Hastened Ring, because there's already 30% attack speed here. This already gets you that attack speed. Or you can get Divine Ruin. Both of these work. Then, if you just want more power, you can get rid of Tahuti as well. Another option for adding more burst, and especially for killing tanks, Soul Reaver works too. Ethereal Staff, that can be very effective. Doom Orb as well can be very effective. You can actually throw it in a bit earlier on. Maybe you can build it before Demonic Grip if you want. That's another option with the building. And then for your relics, you are going to want to get Beads and Aegis. Like most assassins, you build, not Beads and Aegis, sorry, Beads and Blink. You build most assassins with Beads and Blink. Blink for initiation, Beads to eliminate crowd control. You can build these in either order. You decide. If you think you're going to be having a lot of trouble with CC early on, Purification Beads, and you think you're going to have a bit of a slower start to the game, Purification Beads. If you want to be a bit more aggressive, Blink works too. And that is it for the building section for Ao Kuang. Next, onto Ao Kuang's passive, abilities, and basic attack chain. Starting with his passive. His passive, every 20 seconds, Ao Kuang gets a stack of Dragon King's Sword. With the stack available, his next non-ultimate ability that deals damage to an enemy god has a reduced cooldown and heals Ao Kuang. Successfully executing an enemy god with King of the Eastern Seas fully charges Dragon King's Sword. Okay, so you can see that the sort of passive is displayed here. Each of these sections represents a stack. And when I explain the abilities, when I demonstrate them, I'll also show how each damaging ability works with his passive, and also how the ult works with executions. So then into his basic attack chain, his progression is 1, 0.5, 0.5, 1. This represents the damage and speed. So it will do sort of the damage displayed here, which is 175 in these two, but then it will do half of 175, which I can't bother to work out. But it will also, the animation will go off twice as fast. So this almost doubles his attack speed for these two, and then this is just sort of his normal attack speed. So as you can see, I'll demonstrate it. It's actually a bit too fast, probably because I have these on. As you can see, there's 117. It goes 117, there, then 5-9, 5-9, 1-1-7, and as you can see, it sort of does a loop now. It does 1-1-7, 1-1-7, and then 5-9, 5-9. So it's effectively 1-1, half-half, 1-1, half-half, 1-1, half-half. And that's sort of how his basic attack chain works. This is important to note because it's a very fast basic attack chain. These two especially, having double speed on 2 basic attacks is pretty significant, and especially working with these two, which we'll get onto. But onto his first ability, Water Illusion. This is his main escape, and the explanation is Ao Kuang will teleport forward into stealth, leaving behind a watery form of himself. He remains in stealth for 5 seconds or until he attacks or takes damage. Ao Kuang may activate this ability again to detonate the watery form, dealing damage to nearby enemies. I'll just put this on default. I do have a I normally have it on instant casting, and I'll explain why. So as you can see, if I just get it, you can see this big circle here represents the sort of illusion that it'll leave behind, and this small circle represents where he will go to. So as you can see, that's sort of it. And then if you press 1 again, it'll detonate and deal damage. And now I can sort of demonstrate his passive. So if I did deal damage to him, you'll see that stack is consumed and it will regenerate after 20 seconds. Then onto his second ability, Dragon Call. This is actually his most damaging ability. Ao Kuang summons 6 dragons to his side. For every successful basic attack Ao Kuang makes, a dragon will dive to the target, dealing additional damage. This ability ends after all dragons are used or after 10 seconds. He can activate the ability early to send forward any remaining dragons in a ranged attack. The dragons damage and slow the first enemy that's hit. So as you can see, when I press 2, it calls all the dragons. Basic attack, sends a dragon, and then you can see this targeter throws it again. It's pretty simple. Then, his 3. It's just a cone attack that deals damage. But also, if you have your 2 activated, it will send forward a dragon as if it was almost like a basic attack, but it doesn't count as a basic attack, so it will not proc basic attack item effects. So you can see it's sort of a cone. If I press 3, it just deals damage, and it will also consume that stack. And then if I press 2 and use my 3, you'll see it almost acts like a basic attack in that it throws the dragon, but it does not proc basic attack item effects. Then onto his ult. He grabs a single target, damaging and knocking them into the air. If the target is below a health threshold, Ao Kuang will also execute them pretty much. And he'll sort of fly up into the air, almost like a Thor ult, but it obviously goes off a bit quicker. And then he can choose a small like location to land. It's pretty easy to hit because he goes down quite fast. So on the sort of non-executable target, as you can see, this is sort of the target. It's kind of like a cone. Then if you stick it into him, it deals that 196 damage that you saw, flings them up into the air, and then they land after a short time. If I was to sort of try and execute somebody, I'll just upgrade all my abilities. I'll choose like Thorbot. I'll just get him to execute. Okay, so as you can see, this blue mark with the X and the 2 brackets, that shows that he's executable. So if I were to stick it into him, there, you transform into a dragon, and now I can choose a location to land and deal quite a bit of damage. 467, that's a pretty significant amount of damage. And that is pretty much all of his abilities. Also, you might have seen that my sword got fully charged when I executed them. That shows off sort of that part of the passive as well. But on to sort of his ability upgrade order. So at level 1, you're going to want to get your 3. This is your main camp clear. And just sort of the basic overview of his ability order is upgrade is sort of 3, 2, 1, 4. But I'll sort of go through what that means. So after you've got your 3 at level 1, then you get your 2. Then at level 3, you have a decision to make. Do you get your 1, or do you put an extra point into your 3? If you feel like you're going to need that escape, you can pick it up. If you don't think you're going to need it, then just put a point into your 3. Then a level 4, if you didn't put a point into your 1, you can obviously pick it up now. Or if you picked up your 1 at level 3, then just put the extra point into your 3. So your level 4 should always sort of look like this. Then at level 5, you pick up your roll. Then every level that you go up, you just max your 3. Then at level 8, you can obviously max your 2, then 3. And then now most people on most gods would upgrade their roll here. On Ao Kuang, you don't, you upgrade your 2. So I'll just keep on going into it. Then now these are fully sort of stacked. Then each level you start upgrading your 1, still no ult yet. And then this is where you start to upgrade your roll. The reason why you don't upgrade your roll mainly is due to the fact that the execute threshold doesn't increase. So unlike Thanatos, who his execute threshold does increase when he upgrades it, this doesn't. It always stays at 30%. Yes, the heal and the landing damage and sort of the initial damage do increase, but it's not. You're not using it for that. Most of the time, you are trying to execute. Although there are situations which we'll get onto in which you can use it as sort of a non-executing ability. And that is it for Ao Kuang's passive abilities, the upgrade order, and his basic attack chain. Now on to fighting, combos, and high-level mechanical tips and tricks with Ao Kuang. So the first tip is to put your 1 on instant casting. You can put it on quick casting, but instant casting will be slightly faster. So the reason why you do this is because you want to use it most of the time as an escape. And obviously as an escape, you want to get it off as quickly as possible. Or if you want to do damage to people who are sort of on top of you, or you're running away from them because you will heal a bit from it, especially with your passive, you can quickly double tap 1. If it's on instant casting, you don't have to left click at all, and it will do the damage. And some sort of other things to note with Ao Kuang's 1. I'll just put this on normal casting for the purpose of this section. So as you can see, this targeter will show how far you're going. And when you sort of go into a direction, you'll see that you will actually leave behind the direction that you're facing. Because it sort of takes the most recent, sort of most recently how you look. Now this is useful for people because they will notice, hey, if I'm playing against an Ao Kuang, I'll just look where he went, and I'll know, even though he's invisible, I know that he went in that direction. And most high level players will know that. And then sort of another tip that people will often tell you is your 2, you do a 360 when you use it. So if you use your 2 and then you use your sort of 1, it won't show the direction. That's actually a bad example because it did show the direction. So if I was to use that, look, I'm facing the complete opposite direction. However, the higher level up you go in play, people will know that trick with Ao Kuang, and they will be like, okay, if he used that too, then I'll just try and sort of best guess where he went. And now if they guess correctly, you're fucked. If they guess incorrectly, which they can do, then you're fine. However, you can almost guarantee that somebody goes in the wrong direction, because if you do this, people will know, okay, he definitely went in that direction. But you can trick people. If you were to, instead of going at the full length, go on the spot and then quickly turn around, you've just gone in the opposite direction. They're pretty certain you just went that way. So you can actually trick them into sort of where you went. That's sort of another little trick with him. That's sort of like as high level as it gets, the sort of mind games with Ao Kuang. You have to sort of see how the enemies are playing, how often they can guess. Sometimes just doing the 2 and 1 will be enough. Sometimes even just using the 1 for the movement, for like the sort of teleport, is enough. But oftentimes, you know, those little things that you can throw in there, like doing that, they'll help. So, with Ao Kuang, sort of the general play style is you want to use your blink for initiation and your 1 for either escape, or to do extra damage to somebody, or to chase them down. For initiation, you can either choose to blink 2-3, or you can do 2 before you blink. The 2 before you blink will be slightly faster at getting your burst off. However, as you can hear, it's very loud, and good players will notice that it's very loud and that, hey, an Ao Kuang is probably going to initiate. So oftentimes when you're sort of in the jungle coming in for a gank, it's actually definitely pretty much always a better idea to blink and then do 2 and 3. Because if you use your 2 before you blink, yeah, you can get your 3 off instantly, and that's very fast. However, your 2 animation can sort of be cancelled by your 3, so you don't actually do sort of the full 360. You can actually cancel it earlier. So if you were to blink in and press 2, you can get it off almost instantly, and people obviously not know that you're going in. So you sort of have to decide on what the best situation is. Now there is another thing for Ao Kuang that you can do, which is laying a trap. This works well with obviously his ult, which throws them up in the air and then they land. Now this works well with Najar ult, Kumba ult, and sort of the ults that knock people up into the air like that. Now the most basic trap to lay is obviously with your water illusion. It's just a circle and you can choose when it does damage. It's almost like a Scylla 2, and you can detonate it, but safety landed. Now there you can detonate it. Now the sort of next version of the trap, there's sort of 3 tiers to this trap. The next version is that, which is you throw your 1 down, and as soon as you left click to activate your 3, you press 1 again. So once you sort of activate your 3, you press 1 at the same time. Now the thing is, if you press your 1 before your 3, like that, it is slightly so. You see if there was a slight delay there, but with that there's almost no delay. Because you sort of have to wait for a bit of the animation for the 1 to go off before you can use your 3. And then the next version of the trap is you can either do 1 and then activate your 2, or you can activate your 2 before your 1. Either works. And we generally want to do that, and then when they land, you activate your 3 and detonate at the same time, and then throw your 2. Obviously, the quicker you do this, the quicker the damage goes off. Now this works well with his ult, and you can get all of this off in his ult. So it'll look something like this. Something like that, which is a lot of burst damage. Now this won't one-shot most people, but it can do a significant amount of damage. And oftentimes if you've been boxing them, and if you throw them up into that trap, it will be enough. And especially if you're using it to set up for your team, because that is some of the best setup you can possibly get in SMITE. Keeping them there with sort of no chance of getting out, and most people most good players, won't burn beads to get out of his ult, which is another thing to note with his ult. Beads is sort of your number 1 enemy, beads and CC immunity, because his ult can be cleansed by someone who is CC immune. So even if they're in execute, if they beads there, they can get out. Or if they've aegis beforehand, they can get out. Something to also note with Ao Kuang's ult is that the coding of it is very weird. Somebody might get into execute threshold, so they'll get sort of below. So see, they might even be like 10% health, and you stick your sword into them, and they just go up like that, and you don't get the execute off. This does happen, because the reason this happens is that the game sort of checks when they're in when they're under the threshold, and then it will apply that marker onto them. Remember the blue marker? I'll just show it again. So this blue marker, this is actually sort of the condition for you to be able to execute them. But also, if you stick your sword into them and say they get out of execute threshold instantly, they won't actually be executed. There is a point when you stick your sword into them, there's actually a point where the game decides, okay, this person is definitely getting executed. As well. So if you were to stick your sword into somebody, even if they get so see it's right at the end of this, even if they get into even if they get healed to 100% of their health, they're still getting executed, because it's sort of at some point in the once you stuck your sword into them, at some point in that time it decides, okay, this person is definitely getting executed, and it's sort of just before you'll go up. So that's sort of another thing to note as well. And sort of general combos with Ao Kuang, obviously I showed you sort of the initiation, 2, 3, obviously do something like that, 2, 3, and then just use your 1 at some point to detonate and get extra damage off, or save your 1 to escape. And Ao Kuang is also sort of known as a bit of a tank killer, and this is mainly because of his 2. His 2 does a lot of damage, and it's almost kind of like a bit of like an Anubisal in a way, in that it's a lot of like sort of little hits, sort of death by 1,000 cuts kind of thing. And especially if you have sort of a Telekine's ring, which is almost a bit like a chin size, and then if you have obviously demonic grip for the percentage sort of armor reduction, and then if you have an obsidian shard as well, which adds even more percentage penetration. Something to note though is that obsidian shard will be made less effective by demonic grip. I won't go into the maths of it now, but just know that things that reduce somebody's protections make percentage like normal penetration less effective, but it's still quite effective, especially if the enemy has loads of protections. Now obviously this Amir bot does not have many protections, so my 2 will almost like one shot him, as you can see. Also, as you saw there, I actually stuck my ult into him, and it actually does a bit of initial damage, which is very important, because if you stick your sword into somebody, if they're at like 5% health or something, you sticking your sword into them might actually kill them, and that will obviously consume your ult, and you don't get to execute them, which, if you're trying to get out of a sticky situation by executing somebody, which is often the case, you're a bit screwed then. So that's just something to sort of keep aware of. You'll notice these things when you get more experience with Ao Kuang. And something else to note with Ao Kuang is that he will beat most gods in a 1v1 if they run into him in the jungle. He has a lot of outplay potential, especially with his 1, I showed you that, with using his 2 to obviously get in auto attacks, using his 3 to slowly poke the enemy down, these types of things. But especially after he gets Bancroft's Talon online, and obviously like his shoes, this is sort of like a really deadly combo with him, because if he starts to get low, Bancroft's Talon gives him more power, and his 2, like that is a lot. That ends up being a lot of damage even early game. I'll just get low, and then I'll cut to me sort of healing with his 2. So I'm now quite low. I have the max stacks from Bancroft's Talon, which is 100 power and 20% lifesteal. This effectively means that Bancroft's Talon is giving me 200 power in total and 35% lifesteal. So if I were to say, so I bot in and just start attacking them, you can see I healed about half of my health, and I didn't even get all of my 2 off there either. And these abilities, they hit hard, and especially obviously if I manage to get her into execute, there's going to be another heal. As you can see, that was a lot of heal in there. So oftentimes, Ao Kuang's ult, you can use it to execute somebody, and I would especially recommend in fights executing tanks, because it takes a percentage of the enemy's maximum health. So a tank a guardian or a warrior will have the most health on the enemy team, and that means you will heal the most by executing them. But don't be afraid to execute squishies. As you saw, I still healed almost half my health from that Neef by executing her. But that's just sort of something to know, that is better to execute tanks. But oftentimes you can execute to get out of a sticky situation. So if you execute an enemy god, obviously you go up in the air, you're safe now. But people might think, oh, you'll just run away. But if you've healed that much of your health back, you might be able to go back in. And it's sort of a similar situation with kind of like a Thanatos, how you'd play him. Although you play Ao Kuang a bit more stealthily than a Thanatos, not as boldly. and you can't sort of reset after every kill as effectively, but you sort of have better burst against most people. And that is pretty much the end of the guide. I hope you enjoyed, I hope you learnt something, and thanks for watching.